Tekken games down, we still have one more to go. And this one can possibly be the best of them all. Developed and published by Namco in 1998, Tekken 3 took the world by storm on the PS1. Even to this day, Tekken 3 is considered one of the greatest fighting games of all time. Building off of the success of Tekken 2, Tekken 3 was considered a revolution in the 3D fighting game genre. Unlike how Tekken 2 focused on mainly improvements over its predecessor, Tekken 3 took many bold steps. A lot of these risks paid off, and it certainly did well for Namco, being commercially and critically successful. But with all that said, is this game still worth playing today? Well, we'll take a look as we look at the graphics, audio, and of course, the gameplay. And so we'll start off with the graphics. Now, out of all three of the Tekken titles on the PS1, this is the best looking out of all of them. The character models are superb and they really push the specs of the PS1 to its limits. And of course, seeing things in slow motion is a thing of beauty. The animations are smooth as silk. Now, with all that being said, the only real issue that I have with the graphics are the environments. While the ground is very high res, the backgrounds are still 2D, and with everything being really 3D and really polished, it looks a little out of place. It's hard to really blame it on the developers and the people who made this game, as it was more of a technical limitation for the PS1 rather than just the game not being up to par. And of course, in classic Tekken form, you have your FMV cutscenes at the end. These cutscenes are easily the best looking out of all three of them. The animation is done well, everything just looks great. And once again, they help with the character development and to develop all the characters. There's also a few throwbacks in the cutscenes if you pay attention. Other than that, there's not much else to say about the graphics. Still today, this is considered one of the best looking games for the PS1, and I still agree with that. Do I say it's the best looking? That's debatable. And because of that, I'll give the graphics a 9.5 out of 10. The graphics for Tekken 3 are nearly flawless. The only complaint I have are about the stages for the backgrounds being 2D, but that might just be a technical limitation rather than the developers getting lazy. And now, let's take a look at the audio. A lot of changes and improvements have been made to the audio. The most notable one is being the music. Instead of having music that's like classical or like region specific or anything like that, the music that you hear is pretty much modern music. The tracks are still unlicensed, but the tunes you hear are from modern genres of music. Honestly, the music is a welcome change and it fits well into this game.
You win.
Another thing to note about the audio is that a lot of the voices have been updated. Since this game takes place 15 years after the events of Tekken 2, it was a fitting change. In regards to the sound effects, everything sounds just as impactful as ever. Both strikes and grapples deliver certainly on the ouch factor. All the hits sound impactful. So when it comes to the audio, there's very little to complain about. The sound effects are great, the voices are great, and the music is superb. And that's why my score for the audio is a 10 out of 10. Again, I don't really have any complaints, and therefore it gets a perfect score. And now we've moved on to the gameplay. At its core, Tekken remains the same with its solid gameplay. The control scheme is also the same from its previous games. However, there are a bunch of changes that have been made to the overall experience. One of the biggest changes is the sidestep. Using the directional button, players can now get out the way of attacks and use it to set up some other unique attacks, such as side grabs and a bunch of other type of attacks. This adds a whole new element as now characters play on a 3D plane instead of a 2D one. One of the biggest risks that Tekken 3 has taken involves its character roster. Since this game has taken place 15 years after Tekken 2, a lot of the characters from the past games have been replaced. Only 6 characters from Tekken 2 return in this title. 15 new characters have been introduced. The likes of Eddie, Huang, Forest Law, Julia Chang, Brian Fury, and a few others fit very well into this game. I also forgot to mention Jin Kazama, who replaces Kazuya in this game, who Jin pretty much becomes the poster boy for Tekken. Just like the previous Tekkens, a good amount of time will be spent in the arcade mode. Here you'll unlock new characters, see new cutscenes, and a bunch more. For the most part, the arcade mode operates the same as its previous mode, so you have to battle through a certain number of stages, having, a set path for you, and you fight a boss at the end. In this game, there are no more sub-bosses to speak of. Everyone has to face Heihachi, and then Ogre, and then his final form, True Ogre. While I do prefer fighting sub-bosses, it's okay and it's something that I can overlook. After you defeat Heihachi, you have Ogre to face, which he has two forms. His regular form, which honestly, Ogre to me is a very unimpressive boss. And the reason why is because instead of having like his own unique moves, or being a palette swap of another or something like that, he just has everyone moves from every other character. So after you defeat Ogre in one round, you have to defeat True Ogre, which is pretty much his more powered up version. He has a couple moves, Fireball, the most infamous Waning Moon, and a few others. Honestly, like I said before, he's not that challenging of a boss like Devil was, or how Kazuya was in Tekken 2. So just, good timing and just sticking to your skills, and you should easily beat him, and enjoy your movie as well. Tekken 3 has the most modes in any of the Tekken games on the PS1, and even all the Tekken games in general. One mode in particular that I would like to talk about is Tekken Force mode. It's pretty much a beat 'em up using the Tekken controls. You have about 4 stages to complete, so it doesn't become too long, and it's an enjoyable challenge. While you do fight using the Tekken controls, it takes a lot of time to get used to, since you can't really move up and down without tapping and doing your sidestep. So you don't really have full movement to move around. It's a little difficult to get used to, but it's a fun distraction. Now, at the end of each stage in Tekken Force mode, you have to face a boss, and it differs depending on the character that you're playing. Since I'm playing as Law, my boss for the first stage is Paul. While this mode is very enjoyable, I do have a few gripes about it. One of the biggest ones is that it's hard to target who you want to face, and when you're facing two, it's really hard because as soon as you start striking, you're left defenseless. Also, you have to complete the whole game on one life. There are no continues, so even if you're in the last level and you happen to get KO'd, you're done. That's it. Game over. In Tekken 3, all the modes from Tekken 2 return, and my favorite, Team Battle Mode, is still in this one. I like doing this and fighting against friends or even the computer, since they give you a very good challenge early on in the fights. And of course, just like Tekken 2, you do have a practice mode. Here the practice mode has been updated, giving you the ability to fight against the computer, do combo training, or just the regular old freestyle training. And just like I said before in Tekken 2, this is a great way to get used to the fighters. You get to practice some new tricks, learn some tendencies of other opponents. It's really interesting. You can learn matchups too. So from a competitive standpoint, this is a very useful tool. And since a lot of the characters in the game that came from previous games have added new moves, and there's so many new characters, this is great to start off with so you get used to the characters that you will play as in the game. Another cool mode that this game has is Tekken Ball mode. You don't start off with it, so you'll have to unlock it. It's played against either another person or against the computer. So your goal is to pretty much drain the health of your opponent, but the only way to do that is to get the ball to fall on their other side without them touching it, as you can see here. There's also other things you can do, like you can do special combos, so when they touch the ball, it hurts them. And there's just a bunch of things you can do. It's actually a very enjoyable mode, and I certainly recommend it once you unlock it, to try it out a few times, especially with friends, because you can have a hell of a lot of fun just standing in the middle, just whacking at each other, trying to get the ball to the other side. It's actually very enjoyable. I always find it hilarious how you can KO somebody by kicking a ball to their face.
You win.
You also have a theater mode, which is actually really cool. You can watch some of the FMV endings and listen to some of the music on the disc. You can also put in a Tekken 1 disc or a Tekken 2 disc and watch the videos from there. It's actually really cool because you can see just how far Tekken has gone. You can see its humble beginnings and the ugly CGI and how it really improved throughout the years. Tekken 3 on the PlayStation 1 is pretty much a complete experience. It satisfies both casual fans with all their modes, and it also satisfies the hardcore players with its new mechanics and the sidestepping. Tekken 3 is a lot of fun whether you're by yourself or you're with people. The fighting mechanics even to this day are second to none, and the replay value is certainly amazing. Just like Tekken 2, I can talk a lot about Tekken 3 and just how amazing the mechanics are and how much of a revolution it was to the 3D fighting game genre. So my final score for Tekken 3 and the gameplay is 9.5 out of 10. There's a lot to like about Tekken 3 when it comes to the gameplay, and the list goes on and on. My complaints are how I wish Tekken Force mode was a little bit better, maybe 2-player or even lowering the difficulty, giving me, a continue or so. Other than that, it's a great game and a great experience. And now it's time for the closing thoughts. A lot of people see Tekken 3 as a flawless masterpiece even to this day. In a lot of perspectives, I can agree with them. But this game, I wouldn't say this game is perfect, as it does have some issues with the extra modes, like I said, with Tekken Force and a couple of other things. But overall, I believe it's not that far off from the mark. And that's why my overall final score for Tekken 3 is a 9.5 out of 10. The graphics are simply amazing, the audio is the best, and the gameplay is nearly flawless. Tekken 3 is a fantastic game, and I recommend this to anyone, even people that aren't really fans of the fighting game genre. There's a lot to like in here, so you'll definitely enjoy this title. So that brings Tekken Month to a conclusion. All I have to say is I enjoyed it. Thank you guys for all your support. I'll be taking a little bit of a break, unfortunately, since things are coming up and I need to attend to that. But I'll soon be back after this. Support me on Patreon, and this is Powerhouse signing off.
You win. You lose. Continue. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Game over.